Hello everybody, good to see you. My name's Rob Meredith. You'll normally find me running after our two energetic boys at the 10:45 morning service at Christchurch. I'm sure that many of you, like I, have found lockdown really difficult. I work as a solicitor and a director in a local law firm. We've had to make many difficult decisions to ensure the long-term success of the firm and to ensure everyone has a job when we are through this difficult time. Having to ask various valued members of staff to go on furlough, and having had to have lots of difficult conversations. It's been a really difficult and stressful time, which has tested my faith very much, and I've been very aware of the negative impact it's had on my mental health. In the busyness, I have been guilty of trying to do everything in my own strength, and ending up feeling like I'm on a never-ending roundabout, feeling dizzier and dizzier as time goes by, leaving me feel exhausted and helpless. I'm thankful for my lovely family and also the prayer and support of lovely people at church to help me get through this difficult time. As I'm coming out the other side, so to speak, I just wanted to share with you two reflections from the Bible which helped me through tough times like this. The first one is about perhaps my favourite disciple, Peter. I can resonate with him perhaps more than the other disciples because of the errors he makes and how he shows it's perfectly human for us to make mistakes, for us to take our eyes off the ball and to lose focus. And my favourite story about Peter along those lines is the one of Jesus walking on the water and Peter being in the boat and realising he was Jesus. Peter decides to get out of the boat and walk on the water himself. It sounds like from reading the Bible that for the first 3 or so steps, Peter is perfectly able to walk on the water as his eyes are fixed on Jesus. He sees him, he feels safe, and he can't wait to give him a massive hug and hear what he has to say. But then he gets distracted. Maybe he freaks out that he's actually walking on the water. Perhaps he's distracted by the things around him. Perhaps it was windy. Perhaps it was the size of the waves. Perhaps it was friends shouting in the background. But when Peter takes his eyes off Jesus, he can no longer walk on the water and he begins to sink. It's the same for us. If we try to get through difficult times in our own strength, if we don't focus on Jesus and get distracted by the world around us, then we'll make mistakes. We'll end up falling in the water. And we can't do it on our own. And it's then Jesus who comes to Peter. He takes his hand and guides him to safety. And we need to let Jesus do the same for us. When we live in this way, it doesn't mean everything's going to be plain sailing. There's still going to be stormy weather. But when we bring our fears and worries to God, rather than trying to solve them in our own strength, we will feel lighter for it, rather than feeling weighed down by having to make the difficult decisions we have to face on our own. The second passage that I love is one in Philippians, which has been brilliant as we've been working through that together as a church family. One of my favourite passages is when Paul is encouraging us to press on towards the goal to which Christ has called us. Paul makes the Christian life sound like a race, a marathon if you will. It brings to my mind the memory of taking part in the Robin Hood half marathon last year. I am not a great runner, but I was raising money for Autism East Midlands, which is a charity very close to our hearts, and I know I needed to start training for it earlier in the year, but I found it really hard to motivate myself, and ultimately I didn't do enough training. I got distracted. When it came to the time of the race, it was really hard going. And it brings to mind that when Paul calls us to run the Christian race, it's also important for us to train ourselves, to read the Bible, to find a group of friends who you can share with and pray with. Seek others' wisdom when we face difficult decisions. And then this idea of a race sort of brings me back to the story of Peter. I don't know if you've ever watched the runners in the 100-metre sprint. They have this sort of clear focus in their eyes on the finishing line. Nothing can distract them. We also need that focus on Jesus to help us reach the finishing line and to achieve all the things that God is calling us to. One of my most memorable races in my lifetime was the 400-metre semi-final race at the Barcelona Olympics in 1992. There was a great British runner called Redmond who was aiming to get to the finals. He'd been training almost his whole life for this opportunity. The last 4 years in particular, he had dedicated himself to getting to the Olympics and reaching the final. And as he runs around the 200 metres mark, his hamstring pops and he collapses to the floor in floods of tears. His dream is over. But Derek then got up and started hopping to the finishing line, clearly in extreme agony, but wanting to finish his race. Officials tried to tell him to stop, but he carried on. Then, over by the stands, there was a commotion as a man fought his way through all the officials and ran over to Derek. It turned out to be Derek's dad. He put Derek's arm around his shoulders and helped him finish the race. Everyone were on their feet in the stadium, and there were lots of tears. When I became a Christian, probably 2 or so years after that image of a father carrying his son was really important to me. God cares deeply about you. He wants to run the race with you. He wants to carry you. So let him help you with your struggles today. Thanks for listening, and God bless.